All right, hello, welcome back to Unqualified Analysis, and we are right in the start of the football season, the real football season. I'm not talking about week 0, I'm talking about actual real live football games that actually meant something. And to be honest, there wasn't a whole lot of good games this weekend, but there were a few, and there were a few good consequential games as well. Man, we have got, oh, man, take it all in, take a deep breath, look around you right now. We're back. We're absolutely back. So without further ado, no NFL today. We're just going straight up college, and I think I'm doing an NFL episode on Thursday. Still haven't really decided, but you know what? Stay tuned. Be pleasantly surprised if it does end up happening. Outside of that, man, we got a full slate of week 1 to get through, and then I'll get you some previews into the next week, and also one bet for this week that I have already put in on my sportsbook of choice. Bet responsibly, bet the beer money, not the rent money. Haven't said that in quite some time. Again, it's good to be back. It is good to be back, ladies and gentlemen. So without further ado, let's just get into this thing because we got a lot to get to. All right, and I'm really just going to kind of go around the conferences and kind of, survey the landscape. Survey what's going on in the neighborhood, who did well, who didn't. Mostly it's just going to be kind of breezing through games because there's a lot of snoozers throughout the course of this week. So first and foremost, the most hyped game that did end up being a snoozer in the second half, Florida State ends up pounding LSU 45-24 as the final score, man. It was like 17-17 at halftime. FSU was struggling. Both teams were kind of looking sloppy in the first half, and I'll tell you what, Florida State came out of halftime, and they just didn't make a mistake the entire second half pretty much. There was like maybe a thing here or there you can nitpick, but overall, I mean, they came out, they executed better. They were absolute grown-ass men at the point of attack. I mean, they were spectacular on Sunday night in the second half. Keon Coleman ended up with 3 TDs. Jordan Travis, over 340 passing yards, 23 of 31. I mean, 11 yards per attempt. That is hard to get, and he made it look easy versus one of the best defenses in the entire country, at least preseason expectations were that coming in, man. I mean, it was utter dominance in the second half. Keon Coleman, 122 yards, 3 touchdowns, did the poop walk off the field in the first quarter after his first touchdown. It was a beautiful thing to see. Didn't actually shit his pants, so that is just good for everyone, quite frankly. But I mean, absolute dominance. Jaheim Bell, transfer that I forgot the name of when I was doing the whole preview thing and whatnot last week for the ACC, Florida State in particular. But he transferred in from, I believe it was South Carolina he was at last year. He comes in, he scores 2 touchdowns. I mean, really living up to billing. He kind of came in as a versatile guy that you could plug in, run him, throw to him, whatever you need to do. And they did both in this game. I mean, he had a couple big catches for 49 yards and a touchdown. And he had only took one rush, though. Absolutely bulldozed a guy in the end zone for a second touchdown. He's going to be a problem for defenses all year. I mean, Keon Coleman was looking as advertised in the first game. Jordan Travis coming in looking as polished as you should in your 17th year in college. I mean, everything that was billed for Florida State with this offseason and how many pieces they added. I mean, two of the 3 guys I just said right there were transfer guys, like I said. And for them to show up and just immediately produce against one of the best teams in the entire country coming in, I mean, I am high on this Florida State team, man. And I'll tell you, I think even on the defensive side, Jared Verse, I've got to find him on the stat sheet here. I'm sure he's around here somewhere. But, oh, come on. He's here. I know he's here. Jared Verse, only 2 tackles, but one of those tackles was a sack, and he got obviously tackled for loss out of that as well. I mean, he wasn't showing up a whole lot on the stat sheet, but watching him, he made that offensive line for LSU's life a living nightmare. I'll tell you that right now. I might not have had the production outside of that one sack, but he affected that front the entire game, especially in the second half. I mean, I don't know what Brian Kelly's speech was at halftime there, but holy hell, maybe try something a little bit different because they came out flat in the third quarter. They looked, sloppy, making all sorts of bad decisions. Just not looking like the number 5 team in the country. I'll say that. I think I probably overestimated them a little bit coming into the year, especially since I think I predicted them to win the SEC. So we'll have to see how that progresses throughout the course of the season. Obviously, this is only week 1, so this is a fluid situation. But the 1 week sample size was not awesome. I'll say that right now. Not awesome. But Florida State, man, they have vaulted themselves in the national championship conversation. Jordan Travis has vaulted himself into the Heisman conversation. And I was very impressed, especially with, obviously, you had some week 1 jitters in the first half. Really, first live action football for either of these teams, so you got to keep that in mind as well. They dialed it in the second half, though. They did not make a mistake, and they came out physically in the second half and just dominated LSU, especially in the fourth quarter. Their final scoring drive was utter and sheer dominance. It was the one that ended with Jaheim Bell absolutely bulldozing a guy in the end zone. That was not the first time that happened on that drive. I could think of like 2 or 3 runs off the top of my head. Specifically, the one that sticks out in my mind outside of the touchdown the most is Jordan Travis. I think it was on third down, something like that. He runs for it, runs through a linebacker, puts his shoulder down, which not really... Thank you for making all that noise back there, Riley. But that's not necessarily what you want your quarterback to do, especially since that's the guy that's going to make or break your championship aspirations in all likelihood. But seeing Jordan Travis do that for a first down, demoralizing the LSU Tigers and just putting it away after they had an unfortunate drop on, I think, one of the previous drives or something like that, it was impressive. And yes, it was a pseudo home game, but not a real home game on that neutral site, which is a crime against humanity. We'll save that discussion for another time. I was through the moon impressed with what Florida State did. After barely winning last year's game, absolutely dominated this year's game. And basically, it's Clemson, and then we got a season to coast, man. If they get through Clemson, they have an inside track to the playoff, obviously. And with the team they've got, they've got every bit as good of a chance of any of those other teams that are up there. The Georgias, the Alabamas, the Ohio States. Their QB's better than basically all of those. We'll have to see what happens with Cade Klubnik in Clemson tonight as I'm recording this because, recording this before the game, it might stretch into the game if I take too long on this particular matchup, but man, it feels like they have the best QB in the conference, the Florida State Seminoles, and I'll leave it at that. I am very high on this Florida State team coming out of week 1. If that's a takeaway, one of the big takeaways from week 1 is Florida State may be even better than what we expected them to be coming into this year. But again, week 1, we'll have to see how it progresses from here, specifically against their interconference rival, the Clemson Tigers. At that, let's zoom out to the rest of the ACC, if I can ever get back to the screen with all the scores on it. So I may even call it a scoreboard, as crazy as that may sound. Obviously, as I'm recording this, y'all know what happens between Clemson and Duke, because it was last night as you're listening to this. I got no idea because I'm recording this pregame, so I'll leave that there for now. Wake Forest beat Elon. Okay, whatever. It wasn't Musk, so there's not really news there for the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. NC State beat UConn by 10, so good for them. UConn did cover, so shout out to all the sickos that were betting on UConn football. Wasn't me for sure. So hey, not much to write home about there. I'm still not sure I feel any different about either of those teams this year. Miami just absolutely destroyed Miami of Ohio. Indisputably, you could say, dominated that matchup with the Battle of the Miamis to see who the real Miami was. As I expected, still the Miami in South Florida. That's the one that I think is the real Miami. There was a debate coming in, not a real debate, but an internet debate coming into this. But they went 38-3, absolutely dominated that one on defense. If you were watching, you probably saw that mammoth of a man, Francis Malago. If you didn't, that's okay. You'll see him next week when they play A&M. Getting a little ahead of myself, but it's a dandy of an upcoming week slate. So that's really what I'm getting at there. We'll talk about that at the end of the episode, though. Tennessee, currently the number 12 team in the country, just ran Virginia out of the building in the second half. They started slow, let Virginia score a few points in the first half, Eventually, Joe Milton just kind of took over. He had 4 touchdowns. The receivers dropped some passes. You got to be very worried about that if you are a part of the Tennessee faithful. But I'll tell you what, man, they look good, and Joe Milton looked good as well. We'll see. We'll have to see what happens when they face like a real defense, though. We'll have to wait. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. I'll just leave it at that. North Carolina, South Carolina. This is kind of the game that I thought would be the best on Saturday. Didn't turn out that way. We'll talk about that other game I'm thinking of. Then you might be thinking of. There's a couple games actually that ended up better than this one. I mean, North Carolina just basically dominated, and we won't know until we get a little bit down the line whether that's South Carolina just being worse than we thought they were. Spencer Rattler still being the disappointing former 5-star quarterback. And I hate this. I mean, he's like what? I mean, probably not that much younger than me because of the COVID years and all that sort of stuff. So, the ripe old age of like 25 or something like that, whatever Spencer Rattler is nowadays. I don't want to bury the kid too much because also this is the beginning of the season. They could always get better down the road. But that offense looked terrible. Yes, Spencer Rattler threw for 353, but there's a big old blank space next to that stat line. That is because he made no touchdown passes, no other impact outside of a lot of checkdowns. He had a big-time Kirk Cousins game before Kevin O'Connell, the God, came over and made him actually take a lot of risks. See you, Riley. I understand. I'm talking a whole lot when you just prefer a lot of peace and quiet. I get that. I usually do as well. This is more... I talk more on these episodes than I do probably combined for the rest of the week. So you got to understand... I like my peace and quiet. I know she does too. But back to South Carolina. I mean, Spencer Rattler had a big time check down game, so not necessarily anything to write home about. Only scored 17 on a defense that we still don't really believe in with North Carolina. I'm going to need to see a couple successive games of success like that with the defensive front. Because, by the way, the defensive front for North Carolina did look good. They did absolutely dominate that South Carolina offensive line. They won at the point of attack. They won at the line of scrimmage, which is more than they've been able to do for years and years under Mack Brown as it stands right now. I mean, dating back to before Drake Bay, back to like Sam Howell, and even I think Sam Howell was actually like the first QB that Mack Brown has had with North Carolina in this second stint. But you get it. He's never really had a very good defense since he's been back with North Carolina. So that is encouraging to see, but hard to say whether it was just South Carolina being bad or North Carolina being legitimately that much better this season. Drake May had a few interceptions, had a few hiccups there, but he had some throws where he is so damn good, and I think he's a lot more raw, I think, than Caleb Williams, but man, he is exciting to watch. He is maybe not as electric as Caleb Williams because Caleb Williams is just, I think he's separated. He is just separate. He is so damn good. He's as surefire number one pick as there has been on the past several years. I mean, really, Lawrence is kind of comparable. I think everyone just kind of expects Caleb Williams is the number one, giant gap everyone else on the draft board, starting with Marvin Harrison Jr. because he's incredible. But let's keep her moving now. Northern Illinois beat Boston College. That's hilarious. Wow, enjoy that one. You got a lot of booze to drink through there in Boston. I know y'all are a willing participant in the tried and true sport of binge drinking. I am sure Saturday was not a fun drunk, but definitely a drunk for sure. And that pretty much does it for the ACC. So let's move on to the next Power 5 conference. Let's go with the Big 12 because I have got a game that was an absolute dandy. No, it wasn't UCF winning by 50 against Kent State with John Rice Plumlee turning the ball over 3 times, mind you, but still, I mean, kicking the teeth in of Kent State. That's a poor team this year. I mean, their head coach left to be the offensive coordinator at Colorado. Every contributing member of that electric offense they had last year transferred away to big schools, which should tell you just how incredible that offense was. I mean, go look at the guys that were on Kent State last year and where they ended up in the Power 5. That tells you a lot about just how crazy that unit was last year under the now offensive coordinator of Colorado, whose name escapes me, but a very, very good offensive coordinator. They lose by 50 this year to Kent State, though. It's going to be a long year for mascot. I don't really know, quite frankly, but we'll keep it moving from there because how much? What's the time check right now? I mean, only 15. I say only, but yeah, 15 minutes. We're doing good. We're doing good. I'll just keep it moving from here so we don't stretch this to 2 hours. Kansas, they ended up winning 48-17. Nothing to really write home about that. I see Jason Bean, only quarterback that played in this game. I don't know. That's news. That's news to me. I thought Jalen Daniels was the starter there. Jason Bean did play well, but I would be a little bit worried that the preseason Big 12 Player of the Year wasn't in there. That's something I've probably got to look into. You should look into that as well. That's concerning. That is concerning, but we move on from there. Kansas did win big. I still kind of expect them to be similar to what they were last year, which is just a fun football team to watch. Penn State, they hosted West Virginia. Significant to some that may have been gambling on the spread. It was, I believe, the line set at either 20.5 or 21 on the dot in favor of Penn State. It was under 10 seconds left remaining. I believe Penn State was up 31-15 just based on the laws of simple math, looking at the final score. In the final 10 seconds, James Franklin knows that spread, didn't bet on it, but likes to benefit the boosters and the alumni that are betting on the game, and decides, you know what, I'm going to win one for the bettors today, and just runs one in. I respect it. I respect it. It's a beautiful move. As a gambler, I appreciate those sorts of things, I suppose. I mean, it's not like he's shaving points. He's putting points on there, so you can't really criticize him for that. Let's see here. Either way, I don't need to move on from Penn State just yet, because I do need to say Drew Aller looked like everything he was advertised as. And yes, West Virginia is a bad football team, no two ways about that. But Drew Aller looked good. The defense looked, solid, giving up 15 points, not too bad. Probably got some things to figure out, but they're very, very good. Drew Aller looked like the real deal, though, and that backfield looked like the real deal. Watch Penn State, man. Obviously, everyone knew that coming in, but they look like a legitimate contender for the Big Ten crown this year. We'll talk about the Big Ten in just a second, though. Texas, 37-10 over the Fighting JT Daniels. He's at Rice now playing for food. This will probably be the last time we talk about him this season. So, see you, JT. Have a good one. Enjoy your 18th year in college football. Kansas State beat... big shocker, beat Southeast Missouri 45-0. Will Howard had a solid game. Points were scored, and we'll just move on from there to the main event. Colorado going into TCU, going to Dallas, going to Fort Worth, I think is where TCU actually is, showing up on their home field, facing the rampant abuse from the crowd, saying, "Fuck you, Dion." That's never happened in college sports before, which, if you're in the know, some people on the internet were trying to posit such things, and those people have never been to an SEC school. I'll tell you that right now. We've said some terrible things in the stands, and I'm not the only one that's culpable of such things. Go to football in the South. You understand there's much worse things to chant at an opposing coach, quarterback, player, what have you, and I'll leave it at that. Colorado, though, I'm going to say it, I'm not sure they're going to be fantastic this year. I still think they're probably a 6-win ball club, but they might be one of the most fun teams to watch in the entire country because, let me list a few players for you. First and foremost, Travis Hunter, maybe the best player in all of college football based on that Saturday film. Yes, it was TCU, and that defense looks, somehow even more god-awful than it was last year, and it was not good at all last year. That TCU team, I don't know why they were ranked preseason 17. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I think at best they were a 7-5 ball club, and I might switch that around. They might be 5-7. I don't think Chandler Morris looked good at all. Basically, all the guys that looked good in this game, outside of Bailey, the running back for TCU, getting like 164. All the greatest players were on the Colorado side of the ball. Travis Hunter, I just said his name and then just didn't say anything that he really did outside of being the best player in college football. Let me get into this box score here real quick just so I can read off a few things for you. First and foremost, On the receiving end of things, didn't lead the team in receiving because there were 4 guys that had 100 yards receiving in this game. By the way, Shedeur Sanders, 38 of 47, 510 yards, just a shade under 11 yards per passing attempt. 5 touchdowns Nope, 4 touchdowns. He threw for 4 touchdowns, though. 0 turnovers. Dude was an absolute monster the entire game. One of his leading receivers, in fact, his second leading receiver, tied for the lead with 11 receptions. Travis Hunter had 11 receptions, 119 yards in this one. Didn't score a touchdown on offense, but was all over the damn field. Running back, Dylan Edwards was the leader in receiving. He had 5 receptions for 135 yards, 3 touchdowns as a running back, catching it out of the backfield. And as a running back, only 6 carries for 24 yards. And they're running a very, I can't even say they're running a very pass-heavy offense because, I mean, even take out the QB running attempts, they still ran 29 times through 38 times. I mean, incredible. But let's keep it focused on Travis Hunter here, because on the defensive side, he had probably the most consequential interception of the game down at the goal line. Picked it off, took points off the board for TCU, and based on this final score, Colorado winning 45-42. Every point you take off the board absolutely mattered in this one. And Travis Hunter, Trevor Woods was the other guy that got an interception in this one. Hunter was all over the field, though. He was the best player of the game on defense. I mean, outside of Shiloh Sanders led the team in tackles, so shout out to nepotism possibly working out for the Colorado Buffaloes. That's good. Good for them. Good for them, I suppose. I assume Travis Hunter is somewhere on the tackle. Yes, he had 3 tackles, but don't need him to tackle if he can turn over the ball on the other side. That's really all you need to know on that one. He's a fantastic player. His numbers jumped up from like plus 50,000 on your chosen sports book in all likelihood to like better than that, like 2100 or something like that. I mean, just an astronomical leap. Many people might not know what that means, but he absolutely jumped off the radar for a lot of people who are in the sports books voting for Heisman's. Probably not a whole lot of mutually exclusives there. I'll just put it to you that way and keep it moving. But man, I'm looking forward to seeing what this team does. I still think 6-6 probably in the regular season just because of the teams they have to face throughout. Maybe 7-5 though. They kind of stole one I didn't think they would win against TCU. So a bowl game is looking very, very likely and a very attractive. I mean, if he goes even 7-5 in his first year at Colorado, man, that is a barnstorming success for year one. You cancel Christmas and you have a party instead. That is a fantastic first year for Dion, but we are only 1 week through it, and we can't just assume those things going in. It's a damn good team, looks like it though. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this whole thing ends up. It's going to be one of the more fun teams to watch in the country, and it's in one of the more fun conferences in the country, even though it is in its swan song, the Pac-12. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Just got to keep it moving, though, because we're probably, 24 minutes, and we have not even made it through the second conference, so I got to kind of pick it up here. It's okay, though. There are less games to talk about after this outside of, just recapping what happened. Case in point, Oklahoma won 73-0 against Arkansas State. They'll be probably ranked a little bit higher than 20 this week. I just want to point out that Brent Venables made Butch Jones cry. Butch Jones now being former Tennessee coach, now current Arkansas State head coach. He was seen near tears on the sidelines. So, yeah, that's a grown man crying at how bad Oklahoma beat him 73-0. And did I maybe have a ticket on Arkansas at an alternate spread at plus 40.5? Maybe I did. Did it work out? Clearly not. So we'll just keep it moving from there. Iowa State, they got a win. They got on the board 30-9 against Northern Iowa. And they didn't have the leading passer on the day, so that's not good. Didn't have the leading passer or the leading rusher, so good luck, Iowa State. You at least got a win out of the gates. Same thing with Cincinnati. They beat Eastern Kentucky 66-13. Cincinnati quarterback, what's his name? Jones. Emory Jones. That's a guy. Why does that sound familiar? Emory Jones. Oh, yeah. He played at Florida. for several years, and then he played at Arizona State last year. Okay, okay, I remember you. But yeah, he is now the quarterback. Transfer portal's weird like that, guys. He's now the quarterback at Cincinnati, threw 5 touchdowns against Eastern Kentucky. That doesn't really prove anything to me, though. What does prove something to me, Baylor lost by double digits to Texas State, and they gave up 42 points in the process. Just grody. Absolutely gross. I mean, even in the face of a solid game from Blake Shapen, didn't turn the ball over. Didn't turn the ball over. Passed the ball pretty well. I mean, 300 yards, just shy of 10 yards to an attempt. Had 2 touchdowns, but I mean, they were grody on the ground. I mean, just absolutely terrible. 32 rushes for 108 yards. I mean, even if you take out the 4 for -2 for Blake Shapen, I mean, that's 28. 10, even then you're not getting over 4 yards a carry, so just an abysmal day on the ground for him at Baylor. Just not a great, just a terrible day on defense as well, giving up 42 points to, I'm not even sure if Texas State is an FBS team. They might be an FCS team. I don't think they're an at the very best, they're not a Power 5 team. They're not a great team, and then you just absolutely got carved up by them. TJ Finley, shout out, former Auburn and LSU quarterback. He threw for 3 touchdowns, but man, getting beat by Texas State week 1, already on the hot seat, Dave Aranda, unfortunately. I still think he can coach his ass off, but you simply cannot lose to Texas State. Just simply cannot happen. Houston squeaked one out against UTSA. Not at all the high-flying affair that many people thought, including me. Ends up being a defensive sort of contest. 17-14, the final score. Houston gets it done. No one looks particularly good in this one outside of the backfields. But hey, Houston gets a win. UTSA, we'll have to see where it goes from here. They've been very, very good with Frank Harris at the helm. At quarterback, he's still there, so could end up being an okay season. Didn't look good against Houston, though, so we'll have to see how it goes from here. Oklahoma State beat Central Arkansas. It wasn't pretty, 27-13, and I'm still not sure how good the Oklahoma State is, considering they lost basically everyone this off season. But they get a win in week 1 against a team that it doesn't matter. Central Arkansas, who cares? Texas Tech, I was foolish enough to bet the spread on Texas Tech, and that was like a 2-touchdown spread. Not only did they not cover, they didn't win either, and this was the most electric game of the Saturday night slate, late night. If you stayed up late for this one, you got an absolute treat watching it. I mean, Texas Tech looked like they were about to blow Wyoming out of the water. They were up 17-0 at one point, and then they just went absolutely quiet for 2 quarters. The middle 2 quarters, they didn't score a single point. 4th quarter, they only scored 3 to tie it and send it into overtime. Meanwhile, Wyoming just came storming back. Scored 10 in the 2nd quarter, took the lead in the 3rd quarter, extended the lead in the 4th quarter even, and that, man, they were actually, no, they tied it up in the 3rd quarter, got the lead in the 4th quarter, and Texas Tech tied it up. I mean, it was back and forth over and over again until Wyoming just decided, hey, let's go home, scores a 2-point conversion to end this thing, ice it, game over, and oh boy, I still feel good about Texas Tech. That was a fantastic game for Wyoming. Just really, really good in general. Good for all of them. I don't know really any of those players. I probably won't hear anything about Wyoming ever again this year. Andrew Peasley, their starting quarterback, didn't even look good. He was like 18 for 34. No real stars on the Wyoming offense at all throughout the entire game, which is crazy for having scored 35 points. I mean, defensively, even, yeah, I mean, they just had an all-around good comeback sort of game. And, I mean, Texas Tech maybe had the better passer in this game in Tyler Shugg, but outside of him, I mean, not even really an individual guy that stepped up throughout this one either. I mean, it was a weird game for the Red Raiders, and that's just kind of what you could expect when you go into the elevation, 7,000 feet there in Laramie. Oh boy, that just wasn't a great start to the season for Texas Tech, but what a game. What an absolute game we had over there. BYU won 14-0 against Sam Houston. Gross. Absolutely gross. You hate to see it, and I want it off my computer screen right now. So let's move on to let's do the Big Ten this time, and we got to speed it up, man. I'm taking entirely too much time on this. Minnesota, Nebraska won an absolute rock fight on Friday night. Nebraska is still cursed, and we can take that to the bank right now. Again, this is Matt Rule year one. I'm not expecting a whole lot of success. They were in this one, could have won it. That's really all you can really ask for this season. It's a rebuilding year. Next year they'll be better, and then the third year they'll be even better than that, I would imagine. I'll just leave it at that. Michigan State won 31-7 against Central Michigan. Looked rocky early, and then they eventually pulled away. Still don't know what they're going to do about Mel Tucker other than just stare at him and be like, well, I guess you are my coach whether I want it or not, so have at it, Mel. I suppose that's really all you can do at this point. But 31-7, so they're on the board at the very least. Michigan mourned their head coach, Jim Harbaugh, who apparently died, judging by the tribute at the beginning of the game. First off, the Michigan players, and if you didn't know, Jim Harbaugh did not die. He's not dead, so we'll just put that to rest right now. If you didn't catch the subtext there, self-imposed suspension for, I believe, 3 or 4 games. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but self-imposed suspension that he's serving now for giving a kid a cheeseburger and lying about it. That's, don't need to get into that whole thing again. That's stupid though. But also kind of annoying. The Michigan players showed up in free Jim Harbaugh shirts and then held up 4s before so I guess it was a 4-game suspension. They held up 4s before the opening snap, not to signify the fourth quarter, but to say that the 4-game suspension. Okay, then they only scored 30 against East Carolina. Dominated them on the defensive side of the ball, but that's what you're expected to do against East Carolina. Yes, J.J. McCarthy threw for 3 touchdowns. No, they still didn't really look that good in the process. Outside of Wilson, the wide receiver's getting 3 touchdowns, all 3 of those touchdowns. So, hey, good for him. And you know what? I'm being a little bit too harsh. J.J. McCarthy did go, 26 for 30, so I can't even really be mad with that. I mean, 9 yards per attempt and 26 of 30. He was slinging the ball, so you can't be upset with that. Running game was kind of a little bit lackluster, so what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? It is what it is. Not really a whole lot to say there though. Outside of get well soon, Jim. We're all pulling for you. I hope you don't die in this one. Ohio State. Ugly 23-3 win. Does Kyle McCord keep the job going forward? He didn't look great against Indiana, so maybe Devin Brown was competing for that job the whole time going in. So why not give it a run? Why not give it a run? See what you got in the tank over there. The whole team didn't look great. The defense is going to have to carry them this year, I think. Defense and run game, so they will probably have to get that dialed in throughout the course of the season because that is their road to winning this year. I'm not sure they got a quarterback that can carry them over the hump. I'll tell you that right now. Already talked about Penn State, West Virginia, so we'll leave that there. Wisconsin beat Buffalo 38-17. A few early jitters for Phil Longo in the offense, but it was clearly leaning into the ethos that this team was built on under Paul Chryst, running the football. I mean, you had 2 guys over 140 yards rushing, did Wisconsin. Braylon Allen, my favorite freak from his freshman year, had 8.3 yards per carry, 17 rushes, 141 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. And Chez Malusi, the running back that really came out of nowhere for me. I don't even know who this Chez Malusi fellow is, but I love his name, and I will keep that name in mind from here until the end of time. I love that one, Chez Malusi. I'm going to say that forever pretty much, but I digress. He went 13 carries, 157 yards, 12.1 a carry, and 2 touchdowns. Didn't look pretty at times, but ended up dominating them down the stretch, especially on the ground. 314 yards and 4 touchdowns as a team for Wisconsin. Not exactly what you're thinking from Phil Longo, but he can do what he can. Well, those were words. He can do what he has to when he is needed to do it, and he showed that in this one. Obviously, Tanner Mordecai wasn't looking fantastic, so you lean into the run game, and you just let her eat. And they got the horses to do it. Love to see this early on. It was Buffalo though, so not really a whole lot we can glean from that. Iowa scored the first opening. Get this for a stat: scored the first opening drive touchdown that they've had since 1991. I was but a gleam in my mother and father's eyes in 1991. I was not even a wee babe. I just wasn't alive or coherent. I was floating somewhere in the ether somewhere, or whatever, just based on your religious beliefs. I don't know, man. The point is, that's a long ass time to not score a opening drive touchdown. Also, I don't know why I was looking at that monitor. There's not a camera over there. There's a camera right there. I just kind of looking at my reflection in the TV there, just kind of talking. I'm weird. It is what it is there, but I mean, since 1991 for an opening drive touchdown, that is a long time. That's over 30 years, folks. That's over 30 years that they had not scored an opening drive touchdown. But I'll move off it. Scored 14 points in the first quarter, maybe on their first two drives even, and that was it. They kind of put it in cruise control after that. Scored 24 points, 124-14 against Utah State. Cade McNamara is there. He is a quarterback that is on the field playing the game of football, and that's the best thing I can say about that offense. Outside of that, it looked a whole lot like it's looked the last several years, and the defense should be good. Defense should be good, so take solace in that, Iowa fans. Fresno State beat Purdue 39-35. Should probably get used to that one, Purdue. It's going to be a common occurrence this year. Hate to see it, but feel like it's definitely going to happen. Maryland beat Towson 38-6. Shout out Towson. His sister went to Towson, so that's good times. It's a place that I've visited on a couple occasions. Don't have any really strong opinions about it, but shout out Towson. Lost by 32 in this one. In Maryland, Talia Tonga-Vailoa, 260, 3 TDs. He's back for his 17th year in college football, like some other quarterbacks we've talked about. Happy to see him doing well. I think Maryland's going to be a solid team once again this year. And Illinois just barely beat out Toledo 30-28 to win in that one. A win is a win. It counts in the scoreboard no matter what. So you made it out of week one. That does it for the Big Ten, though. So let's talk about the Pac, not the SEC. We'll get to the SEC in a second, but we'll talk about the Pac-12. And that was in week 0. Don't need to talk about that. Utah kicked the life out of Florida. Billy Napier. You want to talk about a guy that's on the hot seat? Well, first off, Neil Brown at West Virginia was on the hot seat last season and somehow found his way to do-si-do and stay on that seat. I don't know how, still don't know how. Don't think he'll make it through the end of the season, but leave that there. If you want to look for another guy on the hot seat, Billy Napier. Oh boy. It's not just that they lost in this one. It's how they lost. It's the fourth down where Utah's about to punt it away. They punt the ball, and then the officials got a flag out there. What's the flag? Oh, there's a uniform violation. Florida had 2 number 3s on the field at the same time, and because of that is a 5-yard penalty resulting in a first down. And then all of a sudden, I believe Utah ends up scoring a touchdown on that drive. That's the type of mistakes that Florida was making. And by the way, your savior from the transfer portal, Graham Mertz, looks a whole lot like the Graham Mertz that was at Wisconsin as well. Florida looked bad in week 1, and I will reserve a little bit of judgment because they were in a tough situation, not only traveling across 2 time zones, but playing at elevation, 4,400 feet above sea level, and you can feel it there. I've been over to Salt Lake City. Beautiful area, by the way. Fantastic if you're into hiking and whatnot. Just love the good Rockies landscape. But you can feel the elevation there, man, and if you're not prepared for it, it can hit you like a ton of bricks. That might have been a little bit of what happened with Florida, but it just felt like they were not well coached, they weren't well disciplined, and Graham Mertz did not look like the answer at quarterback, and I don't know if they have an answer on that roster at quarterback. Billy Napier, it's tough for me to see him making it through his second season at Florida, but the lifeboats are on standby right now. I understand this was a tough situation to walk into, so maybe, just maybe, he can pull it together when he's not in such dire circumstances, if you will. I suppose you could call it that. A lot of adversity being faced on the road. However, Not a good start, and does not give me a whole lot of faith that he's going to pull it together down the stretch of this season. Arizona State squeaked one out, against Southern Utah. Jaden Rashada made his debut at quarterback. He had an okay day, 236, 2 touchdowns. Looked all right, but almost losing to Southern Utah. I don't think Arizona State's going to be very good, guys. That's just kind of the way it is. But they have an interesting quarterback to watch in Jaden Rashada, true freshman, former 5-star, either 4 or 5-star quarterback. I think high 4-star quarterback in this past recruiting cycle. Should be interesting to watch from that his perspective at the very least. Kenny Dillingham, Bo Nix's offensive coordinator last year coming in. Should be interesting. So they might win 3 games, but could be fun. Either way, they're not going to a bowl game because they were moral enough to do that themselves, to ban themselves from the bowl games. Yeah, that's what it did. All right, good deal. That's makes a lot of sense there. We'll keep it moving though. Stanford beat Hawaii 37-24. Ho hum, don't care. Hawaii quarterback threw for 355 and 3 touchdowns. That's pretty good. That's pretty solid. USC beat Nevada 66-14, and I'm here. Circle the wagons, folks. Circle the wagons, because if you are betting, you are a betting person out there listening to this podcast. First and foremost, like I said before, bet the beer money, not the rent money. Gamble responsibly. If you have a problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. You understand how it is. That being said, those of you that don't have a problem, gather around, circle the wagons. We need to hammer the USC over every single week until the sportsbook starts catching on, setting these lines at like 75 every single game, because this is the exact same team as last year, except for the offense might be even better, and the defense still absolutely stinks. They are an absolute juggernaut on offense with Caleb Williams. He had another freak athlete sort of play in this game. True freshman 5-star wide receiver Zachariah Branch scored another touchdown in this one. And he's got Caleb Williams throwing the ball. And I didn't even talk about Mario Williams out there as well. They got even more receivers that I can't name off the top of my head, but they are loaded at running back. They got Marshawn Lloyd there as well, transferring from South Carolina. They are loaded with talent on the offensive side of the ball, and it is the exact opposite on the defensive side of the ball, and I doubt they're going to get the turnovers they did last year. We need to hammer the over on every USC game until the sportsbook catches on. We must ride. This is how we're going to make money, in at least for a little bit, until we got to jump off the train, because we will have to jump off at some point. It's just going to be too lucrative. Vegas is going to sap the life out of this bet at some point, but until they do, we have got to ride this like a prize stallion to a profit train. I will say that right now. We'll move on from there, because who the hell cares about USC beating Nevada? Washington, Boise State, they got beat down like they were a bad team. Boise State is not a bad team though. Michael Penix threw for 450, 5 touchdowns in a 56-19 win over Boise State. Washington looked very, very impressive. Roma Dunze had 7 receptions, 132 yards, receiving 1 touchdown. The leading receiver in the Pac-12 last year, returning for another year with Washington. Michael Penix, almost a surefire top 10 pick in my mind, throwing for 450 and 5 tuds. Washington looked as impressive as just about any other team on Saturday when they played. And people aren't talking about him because so much exciting stuff happened with like Colorado. Even Oregon, who we'll talk about here in just a second, just beat the life out of the team that they played. Washington just quietly hosted Boise State, ran them off the field. Their quarterback went insane, has a crazy live arm, and they're just ho-hum, just waiting for people to know. They are at number 10. It's not being disrespected, but they looked as impressive as anyone in this opening weekend. And I really like it's like a 5-horse race over there in the Pac-12. It is such a fun year in the Pac-12. USC can do it. UCLA can do it if they can figure out the quarterback position. Oregon did it or can do it. Utah is always in the mix, especially if Cam Rising can get back in there next week or the week after that. It is a loaded conference this year, and it's going to be a dandy to watch every single week with the Pac-12, man. Let's talk about Oregon though. 81-7 over Portland State, and I think they did this similar last year against Portland State as well. I need to read you some of the things in the box score because it's hilarious. It is absolutely comedy. seeing everything that is on this stat line here for a second. First and foremost, on the Portland State side, they went 8 for 20, 52 yards, 2.6 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown. No interceptions, though. Took care of the ball. And that is passing, folks. That is passing. They threw a robust 40% through the air, and that's all I really need to talk about. That tells you just how much they were dominated in this one. Somehow rushed for 37 times in a game that they were losing by 70. Not sure how they did that. On the other side of the ball, though, every quarterback dominated. I mean, as a team, they went 33 of 38, 381, 4 touchdowns, 10 yards per attempt, no turnovers. They absolutely dominated. The most hilarious stats are in the backfield, though, and I'm looking specifically at Bucky Irving. He had 4 carries, not receptions, carries, for 119 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Think about that. He had 4 carries, and 2 of them went for touchdowns. And he had over 100 yards on that stuff. He had damn near 30 yards per carry on 4 carries. That is Looney Tunes. Insane numbers there. Also caught 3 balls for 30 yards out of the backfield as well. This was just a dominant performance. And there are no fun stats like that on the defense. Concerningly, they didn't have a single sack, but that's, that happens when they only throw 20 times, I suppose. I digress on that front. But man, this was a beatdown of all beatdowns, man. That was Bucky Irving didn't even lead the team in rushing touchdowns. Jordan James, 3 touchdowns, also 8 yards per carry as well. I mean, just utter domination against Portland State, which doesn't mean a damn thing, but everyone put your prayers out to the Oregon Duck because he was hurting. I think he did like 500 push-ups that day. Probably still can't move his arms. Maybe in slings right now for the rest of the week. Might have to put a new guy in that mascot costume. It is a tough time to be an Oregon mascot when you score 81 points in a football game. Already talked about Colorado, Travis Hunter, big things coming, and Shedeur Sanders was an absolutely electric player out there at quarterback. 500 yards, by the way, 500 yards and 4 touchdowns for Shedeur Sanders. Just crazy, crazy stuff. Cal beat North Texas. Who cares? Washington State beat Colorado State 50-24. Again, big ol' who cares. Cam Ward, one of the guys that I couldn't think of last week when I was previewing this conference, threw for 450, so good for him. Damn good player. Arizona won 38-3. Mississippi State will be facing them at Davis Wade this coming week. Jaden DeLora threw for 385, 3 tuds. Should be a good game this coming week with Mississippi State. UCLA playing a sneaky good Coastal Carolina team. They have solid QB, one of the better QBs in college football, Grayson McCall. Super efficient. They made him look inefficient in this game. I mean, 1 TD, 2 interceptions. Did throw for 270, but turned over the ball a good amount of times. UCLA, I mean, wasn't a dominant performance, big-time gritty performance in this one. They were playing multiple quarterbacks, though. I mean, they had Dante Moore, the 5-star true freshman out there going 7 for 12, 143 yards, damn near 12 yards per attempt. Did throw an interception, so you got to clean that up, but 2 touchdowns on the day. Didn't fumble the ball, did throw that interception, but didn't fumble. Ethan Garbers looked like, that was the guy, by the way, that, I didn't know his name, but had to talk about him. Ethan Garbers, the incumbent guy, went 10 of 17. He looked average. I mean, threw 2 interceptions, though, so really looked below average, but everything else about his stat line was average, you could say. Credit to the Coastal Carolina defense for forcing turnovers. Dante Moore might be the starter going forward here, though, man. He showed some juice in this one that, they might need down the stretch and throughout the course of this season. Might not be UCLA's year to compete, but that guy they got in there right now might be every bit as good as the one that just left in DTR, and I'll leave it at that. What else we got? Oregon State, really nothing to write home about. They beat San Jose State 42-17. I got a little gambling story, though. The over-under was 54.5. For most of this game, I was at work, by the way. I was just working all weekend. But I get off at 6 p.m. every day. So I got back, sat on the couch yesterday, was watching this game. I bet the over at 54.5, right? And I thought it was going to get smashed. And going into the fourth quarter, the math was not looking good for me. They were like 10 points short. I think it was like 35-10 going into the fourth quarter. And I was like, oh man, Oregon State might just sit on the ball and just kill this for me. But first and foremost, they did their job, scored another touchdown. Backup quarterback did it as well. I mean, with like a couple minutes left when it was all said and done, he scores a touchdown, 42-10 at that point. And like, okay, we're alive. We are alive. There's only like 2 minutes left at this point. If San Jose State can go down there, all they need is a field goal. But, they won't kick a field goal because there's no use in a field goal. So, basically, they score a touchdown. We're in this thing, baby. And I will be damned. I gotta look up this guy's name, this beautiful son of a bitch. The backup quarterback for San Jose State. Not Siobhan Cordero, fantastic name, by the way. But the buttery smooth man himself, Jay Butterfield, backup quarterback for San Jose State, came in, put on the big boy pants, and with 4 seconds remaining in the game, he just sliced and diced, led San Jose State down the field, throws a touchdown pass on the final offensive play for San Jose State, gets to 17 points, final total for the game, 59 points. I hit the over, and the exhilaration I felt on that play, it is unmatched. Football season is back, folks. Absolutely back, and the over is hitting. Pac-12 overs. That's what you got to focus on for right now. But yeah, that's only real thing of note that happened in this game. Oh, by the way, DJ Uiagalelei looked good. Looked pretty solid. I think like 20 for 25, 239, 3 touchdowns. Looked really, really good in this new offense. So we'll have to see how that goes going forward from there. And let's talk about the SEC and then get her going from there. And we can kind of just breeze through the SEC, by the way. Oh, Vanderbilt barely beat Hawaii in week 0. Hilarious. Florida gets beat by Utah. Concerning. Missouri, 35-10 versus South Dakota State. Expected. Georgia beating UT Martin 48-7. Same margin that Mississippi State won by. So let's go. Same team pretty much. We're the number 1 team in the country right there with Georgia. But Georgia played. Carson Beck looked okay, I suppose. Alabama kicked the piss out of Middle Tennessee State. Jalen Milroe scored 5 touchdowns, I want to say. We didn't learn a damn thing in that one either. Tennessee, Joe Milton's got a crazy arm, but we already knew that. They won 49-13, and Joe Milton had some legitimately good passes. He might be good, but it was also Virginia, and that defense absolutely stinks. He made some pretty throws, though. I will say that right now. North Carolina beat South Carolina. Shane Beamer still looks like a crackhead, but he's a fun crackhead, I suppose. Love to have personalities in college football. Ole Miss beat the piss out of Mercer, 73-7. Texas A&M beat the piss out of New Mexico State, 52-10. Connor Wigman threw for 5 touchdowns. Looked legitimately good in that new Bobby Petrino offense. We'll see what happens when they face adversity, though. See what Jimbo Fisher does at that point. Kentucky beat Ball State 44-14. Kind of expected. Devin Leary looked average in this one, but the rushing game was very good, so they didn't need him to look good. Arkansas State 56-13. KJ Jefferson did what we expected KJ Jefferson to do. Got 3 touchdowns through the air. I'm too lazy to look at what he did on the ground, so I mean, good for them. Auburn beat Mass 59-14. Cool, I suppose. Peyton Thorne threw for 141, so had fun with that. Mississippi State beat Southeastern Louisiana. Looked rough in the first half. Turned it on in the second half. I mean, Mike Wright, remember the name, not the starting quarterback because that's Will Rogers, but Mike Wright had himself a dandy of a game on the ground. I think he had like 4 rushes for like 80-some yards. He is electric. He is fast. He's a damn good straight line runner, and he should be a focal point. Maybe not a focal point, but he had a big-time package coming in throughout the course of this season. I'm excited to see how Kevin Babe, the new offensive coordinator, decides to use him in this new offense. A lot of motion, a lot of trickery, little trickeration. Harkens back to the Dan Mullen era, but I think even, I don't want to say upgraded from Dan Mullen's offense, but looked very Dan Mullen-esque, I'll tell you that right now, in all of the best ways and none of the worst. Woody Marks had his first 100-yard game as a running back because, playing in the air raid before this, didn't have a whole lot of 100-yard games on the ground, but In this one, 19 carries, 127 yards, and he sounds like a cartoon character. He doesn't sound real. I fucking love Woody Marks' voice. He had a post-game interview. If you want to go look that up, it was on SEC Network. Beautiful. I love that kid's voice more than just about anything else in the world. Creed Whitmore, by the way, true freshman. There's a reason Saban wanted him. Man, that kid is electric. Yes, it was Southeast Louisiana, but man, I like what we got going right now. We just got to turn it on, put together a full game against Arizona, and I'm feeling good about the team this year, guys. I'm right where I was before. 9 wins feels like the goal for this year. Vanderbilt beat Alabama A&M 47-13. At one point, Vandy was in the lead 5-3, so that's just love to see gross stat lines like that, but they end up winning by a lot. Doesn't matter, and we already talked about Florida State, LSU. Let's get a time check, shall we? Pushing up on an hour, so we're making some solid time, kind of what you would expect. So let's look at week 2, kind of breeze through some of the matchups here. Wake Forest versus Vanderbilt, gross. Don't want to watch it. Ball State versus Georgia, also gross for different reasons. Still don't want to watch it. Georgia's favored by 42. Kentucky versus Eastern Kentucky, who cares? Ole Miss versus Tulane, that should actually be a really good one. I'm looking forward to that. Oh, and by the way, a couple things I missed about last week. First off, Jackson Dart, which is why I'm thinking about this right now. Jackson Dart started for Ole Miss, and Spencer Sanders has to be feel like an absolute fool for wasting his final year of eligibility. Most likely sitting on the bench because Jackson Dart is the starter. Outside of that, harkening back to Dion, he had some comments in the post game talking to reporters and whatnot, asking a reporter, "Do you believe?" And and these are going to seem like some pretty contradictory statements, so try to stay with me. One, it's not the reporter's job to believe or not believe. It's their job to analyze. And cool. Go ahead and use the reporter as a punching bag to get a cool little video clip out of it. That was fun. But on the other side, having personalities in college football is good for the game, and I like listening to Deion Sanders talk, even when he's being downright disrespectful to people that generally don't deserve it. But I love to see it, man. I love seeing this sort of stuff. Was it mean-spirited? Maybe. Was it awesome? You're damn right it was awesome. It was fantastic to watch. He made some other comments about how a black man leading a group of black men, people get uncomfortable about that. No, they don't. That's a straw man, and you can weave that line to your team all you want, and I'm sure they'll believe it. Hell, Kirby Smart for 2 years in a row got his team to wholeheartedly believe that the media was picking them to be a 7-5 ball club, when in fact everyone expected them to win back-to-back national championships last year. Let's not get this thing twisted. They were the best team in the country, and everyone knew it. And if Kirby Smart can get his propaganda ministers on that and get his entire team to believe such things, I'll tell you right now, Dion can do that at Colorado with just about basically any other bullshit line of thought that he's thinking of. Either way, I love Deion Sanders. Don't get anything like I just said twisted. I love me some Deion Sanders. So, love that guy. Hopefully, we get to see him there for a little bit before he jumps elsewhere. But even if he does jump elsewhere, let's just enjoy the ride because he is here to stay in college football. I think he's a damn good college football coach. Excuse me, that was disgusting. But let's get back into the SEC, shall we? Tulane, Ole Miss, matchup of Jackson Dart and Michael Pratt for Tulane. This should be a dandy down in New Orleans, Louisiana, coming up this next week. This is going to be a real test for Ole Miss. If they overlook this one, they will be beat. Tulane is a good ball club. They got a good head coach in Willie Fritz. We'll have to see what Ole Miss has in this one. Jackson Dart looked good in game 1, but it was also Mercer. They've still got Quinshawn Judkins just sitting there and waiting, though. He's going to be, he's the best running back in all of the SEC. That's pretty much a given at this point. I don't think a lot of people know that, but I think it bears saying. And don't let the Ole Miss fans tell you that I've never done anything for them. I'm pumping the tires hard on Quinshawn Judkins as he is an electric player out of the backfield for Ole Miss. They're going to have to lean on him a good amount in this one, I would imagine, because it's going to be a dogfight with Tulane. That's a dandy. I'm looking forward to that one. number 22 team in the country, facing the number 24 team in the country coming up. Texas A&M going down to Coral Gables to take on Miami. This is another dandy, a big early test for that new look Texas A&M offense under Bobby Petrino down there with Texas A&M. Will they struggle? And if they do struggle on offense, what does Jimbo Fisher do? Does he let Bobby Petrino figure it out, or does he jerk the reins away from him and take back control of that offense? We are still waiting to see that. It is why they're must-watch TV every single week. And Miami, they looked good last week against Miami of Ohio. They're facing a different kind of test this week with that loaded receiving core and a former five-star quarterback, Connor Wegman, Evan Stewart, Moose Muhammad Jr. I can go on and on and on. They were fantastic this past week. They're going to get a real test this week with Miami. Miami's going to be showing up to play, man. That should be another dandy. Line set at 51. And I like that number, man. I think Miami keeps this thing low scoring. Mario Cristobal's crew got a lot to prove in their own right. Let's see what they do this coming weekend against a legit opponent coming in to Miami this week in Texas A&M. That should be a dandy to watch. Arkansas is playing Kent State. They should win by like 40. And that's what the line tells you. They're favored by 38 this week. Tennessee's playing Austin Peay. They should beat them by 40 as well. There's not even a line on ESPN. That's how under the radar is probably the best way I could put it. And probably the game of the week, Texas is going down to Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa to face number 4 Alabama. That's the number 11 team in the country versus the number 4 team in the country. Game day is going to be there. The Barstool College Football Show is going to be there. Everyone and their mother is going to be there in the college football media space. It is going to be a live atmosphere there in Tuscaloosa, and hopefully it lives up to the billing, unlike the LSU Florida State game in the second half anyways. I'm looking forward to this one though, man. It's going to be the first real test for Texas's new look defense. It's going to be the first real test for Alabama's new look offense. The offenses on both sides of the ball are going to be needing to prove some things. Quinn Ewers looked good in the first game. Xavier Worthy is Xavier Worthy. Basically that entire, maybe like I said in the preview last week, Texas may have the most loaded receiving core in the entire nation right now. They're going to get tested against that Alabama defense. This is going to be one hell of a football team or football game. Alabama's favored by 7. I don't know if I trust Texas enough to take the +7, but I am leaning Texas on this one. I have no pick on that one, though. I'm just gonna stay away unless people I trust, several people I trust probably indicate to me otherwise, but I am looking forward to that game. That's going to be a fun one. That should be a close one, and we're gonna find out a lot about both of these teams coming up. To find out what Jalen Milroe is made of. Find out what Sarkisian is made of on that other side of the ball. This is going to be a dandy, absolute dandy of a football game there in Tuscaloosa, and I'm going to be able to watch it because it kicks off at 7 p.m. Let's go. Middle Tennessee State, or just Middle Tennessee, is playing against Missouri. Missouri should beat the piss out of them. LSU's playing against Grambling, and I don't know what the line is or what they're going to set it at, but I'm telling you right now, there's a good chance I bet basically no matter what the spread is, because I think Brian Kelly is about to have an intense week of practice is the best way to put it, and I think LSU is going to come out pissed off their ass to go out there and just beat the hell out of Grambling. Also, by the way, Mason Smith, one of their best defensive players, a defensive lineman, I want to say, something like that. Possible first-round pick in this upcoming draft. He was suspended for game 1 against Florida State. Him and Harold Perkins are still going to be in there. I don't know what the spread is. I'm going to look at the spread at some point. I encourage you to strongly consider that one to add it to your bet slip, because I think LSU is going to beat the absolute piss out of them. Absolutely kill them this week. Keep an eye out on that one. For betting purposes, don't watch this unless you're a sicko. Florida's playing McNeese. God help them if it doesn't go better than last week against Utah. That's all I got to say right now. Mississippi State is hosting Arizona, currently favored by 10, and I like that line. I'm not betting that line because I'm not betting on my own team on the spread. All I will say is Mississippi State better cover. Arizona is not a very good football team. Mississippi State needs to show that loud and clear on national television not on national television, but SEC Network this coming week at 7:30. Not really a whole lot you need to say about that. Just, it's a game, not really a big-time game. We'll see a big-time game from Mississippi State when they face LSU in Week 3. That should be hopefully a dandy and not an absolute splattering. It's at Davis Wade, so we'll see. South Carolina is hosting Furman. Who knows how good South Carolina is? Hopefully they win, I suppose. And Auburn is going to Cal, so that should be an interesting one from a situational standpoint, going across 2 time zones over to the West Coast playing Cal. Auburn should win by a pretty good margin here, but they are kind of a new-look team under Hugh Freeze, and this will be a big test for them as far as adversity goes. They're playing at 10:30. My God, that Pac-12, just the time slates are just abhorrent. I hate to see it. Wish I was more in a better time zone to where I could acclimate a little bit better to those kickoff times. Mountain time zone, I maintain, is the elitist of the elite football watching time zone, and you can do the research yourself on that, but just trust me, it's true. That is the SEC this coming week. Let's look what else we got. We'll just go in alphabetical order from the top again. ACC, Louisville's playing Murray State. Just talked about Wake Forest, Vanderbilt. Notre Dame is traveling to NC State. Could be a sneaky one for Notre Dame. They're favored by 7.5 currently. But this is a good NC State ball club. They're as good as they've ever been. Pretty much the same team that they always are. Rock steady, good defense. Not sure about the quarterback or the offense, but very good defense in there. Expect good things from NC State. Maybe they keep it a little bit close. This will be a good test for Notre Dame going into a gauntlet of a schedule this year. They face basically everyone. Purdue's playing Virginia Tech. Gross. Don't want to watch that. Holy Cross playing Boston College. Don't want to watch that either. JMU's playing Virginia. Good opportunity for JMU to go 2-0 in this one. Getting another notch under the belt for the Fun Belt, if you will. JMU's -7 in this one, favored. Vegas thinks pretty highly of them. I think they'll probably cover that. And I'm not really going to bet on that because I don't know anything about JMU, but feels like they're probably going to cover that. South Carolina State's playing Georgia Tech. Gross. Clemson's playing Charleston Southern. Also gross. And already talked about Texas A&M Miami, Syracuse West Michigan. App State traveling to North Carolina. The over-under is set at 60.5. And I'm tempted to take the over. I don't know who the starting App State quarterback is this year. Man, if you remember last year, there was like 100-some total points scored in this game. It was like 56-53 the final score. Absolutely electric. North Carolina got beat by App State. It was just a dandy of a football game. If we get anything resembling that, I mean, UNC is -18. I don't know if they're covering it. I'm not sure I'm going to bet on this one, quite frankly, outside of the over, but this should be a dandy. It should be a dandy. If it's even a fraction of what it was last year, we should be in for a treat here, folks. Lafayette is playing Duke. You guys know how Duke did in week 1. I don't, so I'll just stay away from that one. Cincinnati is playing Pittsburgh. Good little Cincinnati-Pittsburgh rivalry there. Two teams that I'm not expecting a whole lot about, but I would expect Pittsburgh to handle business in this one. But Florida State playing Southern Miss, just don't trip up. That's all you got to do. Just don't trip up. The line is -30.5, and I'm staying away from that because let down after a big game, you never know what's going to happen there. These are college kids after all. That's the ACC for you, though. What we got next? We got the Big Ten. Let's look at them real quick. What's going on in the Big Ten, if it'll ever load for me? Oh, look at that red bar just creeping across the top of the screen, telling me we're almost there, but just not quite. Don't want to work for me? Huh? You want to move on? Huh? Want to pull up the games I'm looking for? Huh? Oh, ESPN.com/error. That's my favorite site. Uno momento, por favor. All right, it's pulled up. We're good. So, yeah, Indiana's playing Indiana State. Kansas is playing Illinois. That is a clash of styles right there. Again, concerned about Jalen Daniels not being in this game. I don't know why he wouldn't play outside of like maybe injuries. And, that doesn't matter. I need to get that off the table. That's just going to distract me when it's all said and done. Kansas versus Illinois. That's Bielema ball versus the Kansas style of play. That's what's going to come down to, and I'm looking forward to seeing that one. Probably not going to watch it though. It's at 7:30, and if I'm watching anything at 7:30, it's either going to be Texas, Alabama, flipping back and forth with Mississippi State and Arizona. So yeah, not going to watch that one, but I'm going to follow it. You know, I can follow like 10 games at once, pretty much. Youngstown State playing against Ohio State, and Ohio State should just grind them into dust. That's what we should expect here. Delaware's playing Penn State, same thing, just absolute splattering. That's what we should expect. Nebraska playing Colorado. Can Colorado have a follow-up performance? They're currently favored by 3.5, and they're hosting this one. I might not make it an official pick. Would not be shocked if I ended up betting this one when it's all said and done. I still don't know what Colorado is, but I also don't know what Nebraska is, and I know Colorado could score some points. They look damn good in week 1. Might have to move on that one. Might just have to move on that one. We'll see, though. -3.5. If it comes down to 3, that's a definite. If it goes up to 4, if it stays at 3.5, maybe. We'll do it. Hope that was as clear as possible for you. Purdue playing Virginia Tech. We'll just let them do their thing. UNLV playing Michigan. Gross. Absolutely gross. Don't love to see that. Michigan should just clobber the hell out of them. Iowa State. The Cy-Hawk game is back. Let's hope there is a little bit less gambling by the players that are in this game. Given that, and assuming they won't do it again, this should be a fun one. Would still be more fun if they bet some money on it, though. Let's think about that. Let's think about that, boys. Happy gambling. Richmond playing Michigan State. Who cares? UTEP playing Northwestern. Hey, Northwestern might be able to get a win. UTEP is favored by 1.5 right now, though. So that is gross. Absolute sicko. Tickets are as low as $3 for this one. That's hilarious. They're basically giving those damn things away. That's fun. This is at Northwestern, too. So take a little trip to Chicago. Come to a football game. Cry your eyes out because it's so bad. But it should, it's a football game. So yeah, UTEP playing Northwestern. Wisconsin's playing Washington State. Nice little Big Ten Pac-12 matchup there. Little road test for Wisconsin in week 2. Playing in Pullman for this one. A hostile environment. We'll have to see what that new Phil Longo offense can do on the road. See if they stick with the run like they did against Buffalo in week 1. That should be a fun game. Just a little, under radar game for this week. Maryland's playing Charlotte. Who cares? Eastern Michigan's playing Minnesota. Again, who cares? Temple versus Rutgers. Rutgers is favored by 9.5, so that should tell you all you need to know about Temple. And that is the Big Ten. Couple good games, mostly That's the best way to put it, just Big 12, see what we got here. Pulling up the Big 12 right now. I mean, last time it took a while. This time, not so much. Utah is playing Baylor, and Baylor better get their shit together this week, man. I mean, who's to say if Cam Rising's going to be in there again for Utah? But if Baylor comes out like they did last week, Utah's still going to win by double digits. They did it to Florida. They will easily do it to Baylor if they let them. Troy is playing Kansas State. Southern Utah is playing BYU. Iowa playing Iowa State. Obviously, the Cy-Hawk game. Again, maybe throw a little bucks on that. Maybe don't do that if you're on the field, but if you're watching it, maybe throw a few shekels on that. Over-under is currently set at 36.5. Gross. Absolutely gross for the Cy-Hawk game. SMU is playing Oklahoma. Over-under set at 70.5. I mean, Vegas is expecting points in this one, and Oklahoma's favored by 16.5. So this should be a dandy in this one. Maybe not. I'm not going to watch it, though. It's on ESPN Plus, so I guess I do technically have the option, but just, it could be fun. Could be fun. We'll find out a little bit more of what Oklahoma is now that they're not playing Arkansas State and the Fighting Crying Butch Joneses. Outside of that, West Virginia's playing Duquesne, a.k.a. Duquesne, as you actually do pronounce it. They should win that game, but West Virginia should do a lot of things that they don't end up doing, so we'll see what happens there. Cincinnati's playing Pittsburgh, like I talked about before. Texas versus Alabama, the treat of all treats this coming week. Hopefully it should be a dandy. Underrated one that might be flying under the radar because they lost last week. Oregon is traveling to Lubbock to play Texas Tech. This could be a classic game. Over-under's at 67 right now. Would not be shocked if they hit the over in this one, too. I mean, Oregon scored 81 in the first game. Texas Tech was looking inconsistent down the stretch of last week. They still got a really good quarterback, a solid offense, a solid team all around. This could be a fun week 2 game that just kind of flies under the radar. It's the Fox game at the 7 p.m. time slot, so it's competing directly with Texas, Alabama. We might have a couple good games in that 7 p.m. time slot. Always seems to be the case, and I'm looking forward to at least keeping track of this one. This should be a fun matchup between Oregon and Texas Tech in Lubbock. UCF is playing Boise State. See if Boise State can bounce back. See if UCF can actually beat a legit team. Here's how Vegas feels about them. UCF absolutely creamed whoever the hell they played last week, 56-6. Kent State, I think it was. They're only favored by 3.5 on the road against Boise State this week. So that should tell you how Vegas feels about them. That Boise State wasn't a bad team. Washington's just that damn good in week 1. Should be an interesting little matchup here with UCF. A little litmus test to see what UCF is made of. Maybe Boise State isn't quite that good. That's also another thing that could be proven as well. Houston playing Rice. I guess we are talking about JT Daniels a little bit more. Still quarterbacking for Rice. Houston still doing its thing over there. This could be another ugly game in week 2 for Houston. Nichols is playing TCU. And I expect TCU to take care of business, but they could be in full meltdown mode if they lose this one. Again, don't expect that, but could happen. Oklahoma State is playing Arizona State. Interesting little matchup here. They're going to Arizona State, so a little bit of adversity on the flying schedule there. But Jaden Rashada in his second game facing a veteran coach in Mike Gundy over there with Oklahoma State, the Mad Mullet himself. Forecasted weather is 102 and sunny, so that should be fun. Maybe that's just what the weather is right now. Either way, this should be a dandy, folks. I mean, I don't know if it should be a dandy, but at the very least, it'll be a fun cripple fight, and I'll put it to you that way. Could be a good time. Pac-12 After Dark game at 10:30, though, so I might be already in bed. They may be getting done with the first quarter as I close my eyes for that night. So there's the Big 12. Let's talk about the Pac-12 a little bit. I already hit on a bunch of them because they're playing a bunch of out-of-conference teams in the Big 10, the Big 12. Really across the country they're playing. They really loaded up their out-of-conference schedules, so credit to them for doing so. I mean, the Pac-12, like I said before, they are must-watch TV this year. My God, this scoreboard. This scoreboard just will not come up for me. The internet is just shitting the bed, just right on the floor, right in front of me right now, and it is not feeling very good. I guess I'll wait. I suppose I'll wait. I don't know, man. I'm gonna go get another ice cold caffeinated beverage of choice that's not paying me. I'm too young to feel this old, man. My legs, they just don't want to work after I'm done with work, man. It's crazy how that works, isn't it? Anyways, let's get back on topic here. Oh God, it's loading. Okay, we're good. We're good. It's fine. All right. Look at the Pac-12 here. Utah playing Baylor, like I talked about before. Dave Aranda got to put up a good performance in this one. It is put up or shut up time for him. Nebraska playing Colorado, already talked about that. Sneaky spot for Colorado Buffaloes. Let's see what they can do in week 2 if they can follow up their performance from week 1. Washington's playing Tulsa. They should run them off the field in all likelihood if it's anything like Boise State. And Boise State is actually considered a very good team. I don't think Tulsa's going to stay on the field with them pretty much. Oregon, Texas Tech, already talked about that one. That should be an absolute dandy. Wisconsin, Washington State, talked about that one. That should be an interesting little litmus test for Wisconsin and Washington for that matter. Arizona's traveling to Mississippi State. Mississippi State should beat the hell out of them by my estimation. We'll have to see what happens there. UCLA is playing San Diego State. 2-0 San Diego State, mind you. They're favored by 13, but no guarantee that they're gonna come out here and light the world on fire. UCLA still figuring some things out. We'll have to see if it's Dante Moore or Blake Garbers, whatever his name was. I think his name was Blake. I don't know. Garbers, that's the guy. Could be the starter, could not be. Dante Moore might be usurping him at some point here in the nearest future. UC Davis is playing Oregon State, and they're probably going to get run off the field in Corvallis. Stanford is playing USC. Ditto. Probably the same thing. That being said, they set the over-under at 68.5. I'm going to have to investigate the Stanford offense a little bit, but I think we might be moving on that one at 68.5 on the over. Stay tuned with me. Might be happening, might not, but We'll see. Auburn playing California. Talked about that one earlier. Should be an interesting little litmus test to see what Auburn is made of. If they can go on the road like that, face the adversity, and come out there with a win, a big win, hopefully. Oklahoma State playing Arizona State. Talked about that before. Another interesting matchup that I'm not really sure how it's going to go, but should be interesting to watch nonetheless. So we already talked about the SEC. So there you go. That's pretty much what we're looking forward to for this coming week. It is going to be a dandy of a week 2 schedule, much better than the week 1 schedule, it looks like. So enjoy this weekend, man. I'm going to be coming back at you on Thursday with a NFL episode. But before we do that, in honor of that, let's talk about a game that I am moving on. I have already moved on. Excuse me. And I got to pull up the bet slip just for the sake of being accurate, if you will. Let's take a look here. Already moved on, and I'll tell you what the bet is. I've bet the over. I have already moved on the over for the Lions versus Chiefs opening night of the NFL season. That being on Thursday. It does not look like Chris Jones is going to be in the lineup there. I don't think they're making a whole lot of progress on that extension, and I am open to eating those words and looking like an absolute fool in the next couple days if Chris Jones and the Chiefs come to an agreement on like a $28 million a year extension or something like that. But what I did do with the taking a little bit of a risk, saying that maybe, just maybe, Chris Jones won't play, and if he doesn't play, we know Steve Spagnuolo defenses start slow. I think the Detroit Lions are going to score some points, and we know the Chiefs are going to score some points. The over-under is 50.5, and I moved on that. It was minus 105 in my chosen sports book, so find it for whatever you can on your own chosen sports book. Probably shop that one around because I didn't really do that because I'm an idiot. But 54.5 is what it was on FanDuel. We'll just come out and say it pretty much. That was my chosen sports book there. So 54.5, I like that over. I think it's going to be a fun opening night of the NFL. So I moved on that. And with that, that is going to be all for us here, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to football season. We're going to be doing this every single week. I think I'm going to switch it around. I think it's going to be college football on Tuesdays, NFL on Thursdays. I think the last couple of years I've been doing NFL on Monday, college football on Thursday. But it just feels more right this way. I mean, college football was the first one, so why not go with college football first on Tuesday? And also, we have an opportunity to get the Monday night NFL games out of the way before I talk about the whole slate on Thursday. So yeah, that's what we're going to do this season. We're doing college football on Tuesdays, NFL on Thursdays. So I'll be back on Thursday to basically just preview the entire slate for this upcoming week. Might be a little bit of a shorter one than this episode, but should be a dandy. I'll have some bets for you. Like I said at the end of last year, and a little bit of a refresher if you don't remember, which I understand if you don't. I think I'm just going to do like 5 bets a week pretty much, and I'm going to probably keep it light in this opening week. I have one official bet right now, which is that Detroit Lions at the Kansas City Chiefs over 54.5. Big number, but I think that the defenses are going to be a little bit lackluster and the offenses are going to shine in week 1. So hammering that one. That's my first official bet. Might have a couple more for you. I got to survey the slate, if you will, before I make any hard and fast sort of bets. But with that in mind, I will see y'all there on Thursday. With that, this has been Unqualified Analysis. If you liked it, subscribe, share it with a friend or something like that who might listen to the show. Would love that for all involved. If you want to contact the show, shoot me an email at unqualifiedanalysis@gmail.com or go to my Twitter and just DM me. That's at Caleb Verzek, X Twitter. Who the fuck cares? Screw Elon. He's a fucking dweeb anyways. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you for tuning in to Unqualified Analysis. As always, I got no idea what I'm talking about. But one thing I learned over the course of the last week is the dry valleys of Antarctica, the only parts of the continent that are not covered in ice. So they're very easy to see from space. It's just the dry, basically desert on the South Pole of the world. Researchers believe there has not been precipitation in the dry valleys of Antarctica for, get this, 2 million years. That is a mind-blowing stat. It is the driest place on Earth, and that's when you can throw out there at parties and absolutely blow people's minds. Researchers believe there has not been precipitation in the dry valleys of Antarctica for 2 million years. That's one to walk off on. I will see y'all on Thursday. Peace.